things that I have found to be very important is connecting to my inner intuition. We have to rely on our intuition. It is the primary sensory preceptor that we have. Above our eyes, ears, smell, all of that, that's wonderful. It supports it, but intuition should be absolutely number one. Now, what happened when you used to always use your intuition? What would people used to say? They used to say, well, how do you know that? Prove it. I don't know. I just know it. You know what I mean? And so that was a lot of it was conditioned out of us. And we feel almost you can't say what's your intuition because, oh boy, how do I prove it? Oh, I better keep this to myself. But no, number one is going back, and when you're confronted with something, just ask yourself. You can simply ask yes or no. That's a great place to begin. And if you don't get a yes or a no, what does that tell you? Maybe it ain't a yes or a no. So you can say, is it both yes or no? Or is it not yes or no? You see what I'm trying to say? Always imply the four value logic because that's going to keep you from being in a box. So like really begin in everything you do, just start that practice. If you're not already doing it, probably many of you are already doing this. But if you're not, just really try to make that primary and then back it up with the rest of your sensory perceptors and stuff. Because when you actually do start activating your intuition, because it's there, but when you activate it on a daily, minute by minute basis, what happens is that you start hearing this strange voice that begins. It becomes audible. It really becomes, have you ever had that experience where either you know you're not asleep, you're not quite awake yet, it feels like you might be just laying with your eyes closed, it's sort of meditative, and you hear a voice, you clearly hear something, and you open your eyes up and you're like, oh, where'd that come from? Or you have this sense of this audible sound coming through. This is our inner voice. Most times it's our inner voice. You'll know if it's something a little strange, but then that's a whole nother other that could be part Wetiko, but then I think it hits our senses like, ooh, that's something like that about right. And, we all do whatever we need to do to kind of close that portal down. But generally what we want to begin to understand is what is our intuitive voice? Because one of the things that those of us who are Christian or practice Christianity and remember was often said that the Christ consciousness, the black sun, the crystal consciousness, the son of Gaia, the energy that streams from the middle of the planet, Gaia says that my people will know their voice and no other voice shall they follow. This is not some external God. This is us. It's our own voice. It's our direct connection to the planetary logos. The voice of the planet absolutely has a frequency, and she talks and she communicates, and we get to hear this. This is the voice, and she talks. So my children, because we're children of Gaia, will know my voice and no other voice will they follow. Because during these times, this is what's happening. You can't follow those voices outside of yourself. The next thing, number 3, is to really begin to understand four value logic and use it. Every time you're confronted with something that's just off, ask yourself those 4 questions. Yes, no, yes and no, neither yes and no. And see where you fall on that. And if you get neither yes or no, that means the answer ain't nowhere in there, even though it's being presented to you with menticide. We can decide that, no, I'm not going to do any of that, because none of that seems like that's going to be keeping me on my ascension path. Thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to step off this train, because their options are not, right now we're living in times where most often we are not going to be presented with any of the options that are going to be working for us. Trust and believe, we are not. Because if we were, we would have already gotten ourselves out of this. We're still trying to get the right set of options. And we've been presented with everything opposite of any options that are going to be workable, that we have got to create our own path here, which is going to get me to the path of individualization. And so, and the number 4 that I suggest, and and all these things are part of my daily minute by minute practice. This is something that I use to ask myself, did I sense my inner intuition? Am I hearing my inner voice? Have I used for value logic? And have I decided, is this freedom or is it life? Because we got to settle this. Are we going to choose life or are we going to choose freedom? Like Janis Joplin said, freedom is when you decide you have nothing else left to lose. I choose freedom every single time, because with freedom comes sovereignty. Boy, does it just disconnect you from this matrix immediately. Even when you just sit here in your own space, say, yeah, I'll choose freedom. Boy, all of a sudden, it's like just the tone, the frequency of that just begins to disconnect all of those fungal arms. Now, what do I mean by this? See, when the matrix under the control of the fungus wants us to choose life. Life is what we want. We got to live. We want to live better. C'est la vie. All these, life and love. Love and let be. All this good stuff. But the problem with choosing life is this: you're controlled when you choose life, because clearly you don't choose death. Like you don't choose your death date. I mean, unless you're an ascended master and you know the rainbow practice, which I believe is available to all of us as well, we can choose our exit date, but we're not indoctrinated into doing that. So we don't even know how to begin to do that. So because that information, that lost esoteric knowledge has been taken away from us in humanity, which we can gain pretty quickly again, it's the fungus that chooses death when we're going to die. Accident, this thing, that thing, foods, fungal infections, whatever. So when you choose life, you're always going to be controlled by the fungus, Wetiko, which means it's going to keep you in fear because they're connected. Because the only reason why you choose life is because there's something like, I don't know what death is going to be like. But when those of us who've had near-death experiences, and I had one about 20 years ago, when you really realize that when you come outside of your body and all of you, just about all of you is present in that space. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Okay, cool. So what's happening back down there? And it's like, there's not a blip. You don't lose anything in the field of consciousness. You're so present. In fact, you're more present that you think, whoa, like, do I really want to go back? Like you really ask yourself these questions. And so those of us who do, it's only because you've shown your life path, different things. You guys have heard these things before. So at that point, you don't, you realize that there's no such thing as death. There's no such thing as dying. This fear thing it's all an illusion as well, to control you, the whole entire scope of your life, to be able to feed on you. Generally, from frequency standpoint, but some of it is a little bit more, goes down to some other rabbit holes we won't go down. But the point is that, but when you choose freedom, now you are empowered, because you can look at something and say, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not afraid of dying either. So, okay, so if I get the COVID, cool. My immunity doesn't handle it. All right. If I get, cancer, okay, well, let me try to work on it with some herbs and some stuff I know, and I'll go to the doctors and we're going to co-mingle myself through this experience. We're going to get out of this with me putting something in, and you might have to put something in. And, I believe in using what's available, but I'm just not going to go blindly into this because this is what you tell me. So when you choose freedom, it's a clarity that comes with it. And you're not as easily manipulated. It's your sovereignty, because as soon as you choose freedom, every aspect of your sovereign being, the psyche that Jung talked about, exists outside of this avatar. That part of your soul that's totally active in realms outside of this particular realm, now you connect with that and it begins to protect you. It begins to talk to you. It begins to help you along the process. And even so, additionally, what happens is that now our extraterrestrial, family can start assisting us, because we're just not so caught up in this other matrix that we've stepped out into the matrix in which they exist. Because you have to understand that they're not existing under fear and things like that. They're, it's hard for their frequency even to come into that frequency to even begin to sort of, help us out. We have to have this place of consciousness that we've gone to, that we're handling these vibrations at, to begin to have this cooperative relationship. So choosing freedom is a pretty good one to settle with oneself, because when you do, it's nothing Wetiko can do. It really starts melting away. So the last thing I want to talk about is, in addition to the 4 questions that I ask myself every time, and I know you guys have this, but is it my intuition? Is this my intuitive voice that I'm hearing? Am I using four-valued logic? And am I free? Have I chose freedom in this decision, in this choice? Practice that religiously, or maybe not religiously, because that has its other context, but sovereignly. Jung has something called the path of individualization. Look it up. It's really, really good stuff. It's around what we're talking about. But the basis that he talks about to it's a way to begin to unlive the life that we have been programmed into living. And it's strategies that begin to disassociate us from menticide, or for a lot of the mental health issues that are prominent in this society that we fall psychosis to, because we're a part of the collective unconscious. It's like the 101 monkey theory. The monkeys all the way in the South Pacific started washing their bananas, and some all the way around the globe on the coast of New Zealand started doing it around the same time. Why? Because they were a part of this collective unconscious, this field, and we all are a part of it. So we can also begin to remove ourselves from that particular psychosis. But what happens is the more and more of us that operate with this path of individualization, which is returning and restoring ourselves to individualism, which is what humans do. The main 2 things we do as a species is we individualize and we name things. We get to look out into our world and call things by names. So we do these things. We need to return to them. So Jung talks about, first of all, focusing selfward. And so it's about evaluation and acceptance. And it's radical evaluation. Looking at the Wetiko in us, looking at some of that dark energy that just comes through us, because I hope I've demonstrated it early on that it's a part of the psychosis. It's the way the sense system works. This system is designed to infiltrate all of us with a certain level of the Wetiko. And the only way we remove ourselves from it, and maybe not ever eradicate it, but certainly control it, is by looking it in the face. I know all of us can relate to this when we were younger, and you always had that person who wanted to bully you, in your 1st and 2nd grade, and it's the big bully. Oh my God, you're scared to death. You run home, you try to do everything to get out of school early, get out of school late, don't go to school sick, whatever. And finally, you hit this point as a little being, and you say, the heck with this. I am tired of hiding. I'm tired of, all this. I'm going to just confront this person tomorrow in school on the playground. I'm just going to have it out, And boy, it's something about making that decision that frees you. And you go ahead and you have it out. You may win, you may lose, you may get some scrapes and bumps. I remember when I had to do that. Boy, was it scary. But I tell you what, I gave it my best. And if nothing else, I don't know if that exactly I won the fight on that playground in my 2nd grade year. But I tell you what, most people didn't want to deal with me again, because she crazy. She fight like a cat. You daggone right. I got to do what I need to do to keep you off of me, So it's the same idea, that we have to look at that Wetiko. We have to look at When you turn around and look it in the eye, it's a done deal, you know, and not keep on running from it, you know, and that, so what Jung talks about is this radical evaluation, like really looking and seeing where some of that exists. You know I've done it, you know, like, you know, a lot of times, you know, like I might have wanted something to be a particular way, and I might have said and done something to manipulate it, kind of, you know, sort of like kind of like a little white lie, a little bit, you know. Can I get away with this today, Lord? You know, because I wanted a certain thing to happen. And that's an essence of Wetiko. Unfortunately, it's there. But also, I'm going to say this about Wetiko. Wetiko is also can be our friend, because we can learn from Wetiko. When we turn around and look at it in the eye, we learn a lot about ourselves. We learn a lot about this realm, you know, and it's like, we know that's true, you know, like our greatest enemy can be our greatest foe. We learn so much from that experience. And so Wetiko, you can turn Wetiko into your friend. You know, you can look at it and say, hey, buddy, you know what, you ain't ruling no more here, but I tell you what, let's just get to know each other. And Wetiko responds to that level of knowingness. And this is, like I said before, this is out of the Native American tradition, and there's a lot of work down on that. And Paul Levy has an excellent book on this. I invite you to read it, Dispelling Wetiko. And also, he has another book that's coming out that's current to what's going on. This particular book, I think he wrote like in the early 2000s. So the next thing is then acceptance of ourself and acceptance of family. Now, haven't we had to do this? We have families on both sides of this thing. Whatever side we're on, we got some people who are on the other side. And there hasn't been a lot of acceptance, depending on what side you're on. But this is what we have to do in the path of individualization. We have to begin to accept ourselves and our family. It's just plain and simple. Because with that acceptance drops away the need for control, drops away the control that the fungus has over us. Because the fungus is trying to tell us that we should be saying this to this person, we should be doing this over here, this person, get this person to do this, because it works through us. So no, do this, no, get all that whole group that you know over there, get them to do this, you know, and we have to erase ourselves from that. And then Jung talks about adopt a goal of, you know, what is your life mission? That's huge, because when you are stepping into whatever that life mission is, and it don't have to be some great thing, it could be whatever your passions are, whatever it is that you do, this pulls you out of this polarity. It pulls you away, and it realigns you with why your soul came here, to do whatever work you're doing. We came here, each and every one of us, for a reason. So it realigns you with that outside of Wetiko, outside of the dome and the matrix. It puts us back in alignment with nature, with Gaia, with the Christ consciousness, with the corona, with everything that's happening, the planetary expansion. And we begin to then, you know, excel or ascend from that place. And then the fourth thing is to look at what you're doing consistently. Look at the ups and downs. Look at how you're, you know, things are coming along. You know, you're still going to have good times. You're still going to have bad times. You're still going to have pain. You're still going to have, you know, stuff happen. It doesn't keep that from going on. But what it does is it allows you, going through this process of individualization allows you to handle it, because you realize you've chosen the path of freedom. You're sovereign, you know, you're out there, you know, stuff's happening, but it's in your control now. You're not looking outside of you. You're still not connected to that mass psychosis that's directing your mind or directing your thinking, or at least causing you to question yourself.